This is Jonathan Sines from Texas Values, and we're standing outside the House chamber. Today's the last day of the legislative session, so we're talking about some issues that were discussed this session and some of the leaders for this session. And one leader who distinguished himself very well as a part of the freshman class was Matt Krause, who's from the Fort Worth area.
That's right.
Who's also an attorney, understands the importance of laws, how things work in court cases, and particularly on issues of religious liberty. And that's something that you have a lot of background with, you have a lot of experience with, and so spent a lot of time during the session trying to make advances. Tell us some of the things you did.
Right, well, as a constitutional attorney, I did that for the previous 5 years before coming into the session, so I had a lot of experience with religious liberty cases. And a few of the issues I liked that I worked on were making sure that college student groups didn't have to accept everybody into their college student group who wanted to be a part of it, even if their only purpose was to undermine the purpose for which the club was instituted. We also worked on secondary education or elementary education to get equal access to religious groups on the same basis as secular groups such as the Boy Scouts, 4-H, and other groups. And finally, we worked on a marriage proposal that would say if you file divorce on grounds of insupportability or no-fault divorce, then if kids were involved, you had to wait 6 months before that divorce was finalized instead of the quick 60 days as the law now currently stands.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the religious liberty issue. That's something that our organization has been involved in, and we know how it can impact things in the court as far as what the law says. But I think the motivation has been because there has been litigation on some of these issues, and so we want to make sure that there's good guidance in state law that essentially tracks what the U.S. Supreme Court said. Is that right?
That's exactly right, especially in regards to the college student groups on campus. There was a Supreme Court case in 2009 that dealt with all-comers policies. We've seen it at Vanderbilt University. We've actually had already 2 instances in Texas where religious groups were almost denied access to colleges because of their principles and beliefs and who they wanted in their club. So we're seeing this trend across the nation. We just wanted to be proactive and say, hey, we see this trend coming. We wanted Texas to make its own decisions on public policy and guide the institutions on what they need to do.
So it appears the way it is a lot of times is that you have court cases that decide these issues at the Supreme Court level or a federal court level, but oftentimes state leaders aren't following that, or state people in government at local level and so on. So if we have something in state law that tracks that will give them guidance, and hopefully there won't be more litigation. Is that about right?
That's exactly right. And not only that, but it gives them the confidence to do the right thing. There's so much misinformation out there from the ACLU and others that if you do this, you will get sued, or it's a violation of separation of church and state. Having the state official public policy stating religious liberty gives them overwhelming confidence to do what they need to do.
Right. And you would think in a state like Texas, we'd always be excited about an opportunity to say that one of the values that Texans support is religious liberty.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what our country and our state was founded upon, so why not further enshrine that in our Constitution or statutory laws?
And I think what young people learn, and older people as well, is that oftentimes people's behavior, the type of decisions they're made, is based on what's legal, so to speak. And that's unfortunate to a certain extent, but what that means is we know the value of the law. And so whether it's a court case or we put something in statute, it definitely can have an impact on people's behavior.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, most people, when they know what a law is, will abide by it, whether they agree with it or not. Again, why would we not want to enshrine one of our most basic freedoms and protections in the law as much as possible to advance those aims?
Well, there was a lot of progress made on that issue of religious liberty, something you were very involved in. Some of the bills that you specifically filed or worked on didn't get to the finish line. One was very close, we know, that was a part of another bill. That's unfortunate that didn't happen, but that doesn't mean that we can't come back next time and try to build upon that success. But there was one bill, and I know you were supportive of this, on the religious liberty issue that's headed to the governor's desk for a signature, and that's the Merry Christmas bill.
That's right.
Have you seen these things play out in schools, particularly in Texas and in other areas at the local level, where this issue of whether or not you can say Merry Christmas, whether or not you can have some indication of your beliefs at public school for a student?
Yeah.
You have some experience with this, is that right?
Absolutely. The 5 years before the session doing constitutional law, we got so many calls into our office saying, hey, they just changed our Christmas tree to a holiday tree. They just changed our Christmas program into a winter program. So people think it's kind of a silly thing. It's really not. It's one of those vanguards to ensure that we can still say Christmas. We can still honor the federal holiday that we all observe, and that way we can do that. I'm glad the Merry Christmas bill has made it to Governor Perry's desk, and it should be a good law.
Well, we thank you for your support on that particularly. And from what I understand, there was one point a year or so ago where Santa had some trouble at a public school in Fort Worth.
That's right.
So, we kind of joke a little bit. These are serious issues, though, and we probably react that way because it seems absurd. It
That's
almost
right.
seems silly that we'd be still dealing with these type of conflicts, but they are true, and they infect people at the local level. When you're in a position, and I had some experience this myself in working on these court cases, you become public enemy number one when you're a student or a parent going up against a huge school district and administration. So hopefully with the Merry Christmas bill being in law, we'll see more schools being nice and less being naughty, as
That's
I like
exactly
to say.
right.
One other issue that you were very involved in, and we're thankful for your leadership, was the issue of marriage and divorce reform. Have about 82,000 divorces on the last reporting in the state of Texas, but particularly when children are involved. So you sponsored some legislation, had a great hearing on it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was House Bill 3303, and in fact it says anytime that a couple files for divorce on grounds of insupportability or no-fault divorce, if there's children involved, right now the deadline is 60 days. We wanted to move that back to 6 months because those extra 120 days gives the family an opportunity to see what's best for the children, where are we going to put them, what's best for the couple, and measurable good can come out of that lengthened delay. It doesn't hurt the process at all. You can still get the divorce if you want to, but we think when kids are involved, it's such a momentous decision that you need to make sure that it's in the best interest of them.
And we know there's pretty much no doubt that divorce statistically has a negative impact on children. And so the state has an interest in protecting the children and maybe giving a little bit more time for the two spouses to figure out how they're going to deal with this issue. And we know with no-fault divorce, a lot of times you have a spouse who is surprised by the divorce. They're not aware that it's going to be filed. And so a lot of decisions that are going to be made, particularly for children. So we think, as you do, and I know that's why you filed the bill, giving a little bit more time to see how these things work out, maybe there'll be less animosity. I think it's quite ambitious to think you could do that in 60 days. But
Right.
like we were talking about with the religious liberty issue, it's also, is it not a public policy statement by the state saying marriage is important, let's not rush to the divorce lawyer and get this thing done too quickly?
That's exactly right. And not only that, but it goes a step further. Marriage is important, and marriage with kids takes on added significance because then you're affecting more lives than just the two spouses.
That's right. Well, we had a great hearing on that issue. You did such a great job of presenting it and defending it. And there was a lot of discussion on the issue of marriage and divorce reform this session. And so even though we made some progress with the bill as far as having a hearing, getting more people informed about it, that legislation still is something that we want to come back and try to pass. And we hope you'll be a part of it.
I will, and appreciate you and everything Texas Values has done. You were right there at that hearing. I know you were at innumerable other hearings trying to advance religious liberty, pro-life values, and the traditional family. So thank you for what you've done. I look forward to working together with you more.